There's just something really intriguing about horror reboots, isn't there? Especially when they, dare to visit those beloved cult classics, the ones we grew up with. It's such a tightrope walk, trying to honor the past, keep existing fans happy, and still somehow capture a whole new audience. One wrong step, and, well, usually lots of blood.
Today, we are taking a deep dive into exactly that kind of high-wire act, the recent 2025 reboot of I Know What You Did Last Summer. Now, this isn't just a simple sequel, not really a remake either. It's what people are calling a legacyquel. It really tries to blend those Gen Z slasher tropes with some pretty heavy doses of nostalgia, trying for something familiar but new. Our mission today is to unpack how this film was received. Look at the critical reviews, audience reactions, and really get into how it handled its biggest draw. The return of those, iconic legacy characters. We'll explore what worked, maybe what stumbled a bit, and definitely those surprising, kind of audacious turns it took. So, just a quick refresher if you haven't seen it, this new one is set decades after the original '97 film.
Follows a new group of teens, deadly secret. Sound familiar, it definitely mirrors the past. But as the blood starts spilling and secrets unravel, the ghosts of the original crew emotionally, maybe even literally, they come back, weave themselves into the story. Okay, so let's unpack this. The biggest conversation point, I think, for I Know What You Did Last Summer, 2025, was the return of Julie James, Jennifer Love Hewitt, and Ray Bronson, Freddie Prinze Jr. There's always that fear with legacy characters, right? They just pop in for a quick cameo, wave to the fans, and then they're gone. So the big question was, did this film avoid that? Were these just, fleeting appearances or something?
Well, what's fascinating here, and thankfully, is that their appearances really weren't just cameos. Not at all. The source material highlights that they were actually skillfully woven into the narrative as mentors, sort of as hardened survivors, and ultimately as these really damaged people still haunted by their own past trauma. So right away, it sets itself apart from just some fan service. It grounds their return in the story's core. Jennifer Love Hewitt's portrayal of Julie, for instance. It's described as mature, really subdued, and hauntingly poignant, even with pretty limited screen time. Her performance apparently anchors the film's emotional weight, conveying years of pain without saying much. That scene in the memorial pier was singled out as one of the film's absolute best. Just quiet, emotional, symbolically rich, really captures that lingering pain. It kind of reminded critics that sometimes less is more, especially with that kind of deep anguish. Ray, on the other hand, Freddie Prinze Jr., he takes a much more active role and eventually a really integral role in the climax. His art takes this dark, almost shocking twist that apparently stunned a lot of people, audiences and critics. We'll definitely get into that more. But yeah, what's clear is neither character was just an Easter egg. They felt pretty essential.
Okay, so it sounds like these weren't just tacked on. Their involvement, even if sometimes brief, like Hewitt's, was actually praised, even by critics who didn't really like the movie overall.
Exactly. It's a strong endorsement.
Right.
It shows that when you do it right, legacy characters can elevate a new story.
Yeah, the fact that even the negative reviews pointed to them as a positive really says something. Makes you wonder how that boldness, bringing them back so centrally, affected the overall reception when it hit theaters. And this is where it gets really interesting, because with such a, bold approach to these characters, how did the film actually land critically with audiences? Because from what we've seen in the sources, the opinions were just wildly different, almost contradictory sometimes. That tightrope walk maybe felt more like a dizzying sprint for some viewers.
Right. It raises that exact question. Can a film be both shockingly enjoyable and also torture? Because that's the kind of extreme contrast we saw. On one hand, you had Cinema Blend calling it shockingly enjoyable. They praised the emotional waves from the returning cast, and the chemistry of the, quote, fresh blood suggests a good blend. Games Radar went further, rating it one of the better horror reboots lately, highlighting its bold decisions as a strength, like it was pushing things forward, not just repeating beats. There's even that kind of unusual comparison from the SF Chronicle, like a bloody version of Love Island. Found it oddly effective, which suggests maybe a certain chaotic charm worked for some.
Love Island, okay.
Yeah. And Vulture, interestingly, declared the ending brilliantly daring, especially for how it, recontextualizes those legacy characters we were just talking about. Shows it wasn't afraid to take risks. But then, the flip side. That same Vulture review generally called the film torture. Said it lacked the charm, the cleverness, the whole atmosphere of the original.
Wow, okay. So daring ending, but torture overall for them.
Exactly. Suggests maybe parts worked, but the whole experience didn't click. AP News criticized it for leaning too hard on nostalgia without building its own identity. Mentioned uneven tonal shifts too. And they also felt Hewitt's return, despite being powerful, was still underused. Like people wanted more of her. Brian Tallarico at RogerEbert.com called it soulless, said it didn't earn its emotional beats or narrative depth, implying the build choices maybe fell hollow. And then you look at Reddit. Our movies. Users pointed out pacing issues, like it dragged, then rushed, lack of development for the new kids, and that the twist felt like it was just there to be a twist. Manipulative, maybe?
It really sounds like a film that just split people right down the middle, love it or hate it, which honestly can sometimes be a sign that a film took real risks instead of playing it safe. It had a personality, even if not everyone liked it. Okay, let's dig a bit deeper into the performances and what really made this film pop, or fall flat for some. And that has to be the twist. That infamous twist involving the original characters. This sounds like the real make-or-break moment.
Absolutely. It really seems to be. So Madeline Klein, she leads the new generation, apparently does it with real conviction, brings charisma, which you need, right? Even if her character maybe dips into that typical final girl mold sometimes. But you're right, the real depth comes from the returning cast. Jennifer Love Hewitt's performance, like we said, it's a highlight. Those moments where Julie confronts her past, described as really poignant, vulnerable. Shows that trauma sticking with her. She apparently conveys so much without a ton of dialogue. But yeah, it's Freddie Prinze Jr. who delivers the most surprising and definitely controversial arc. He portrays Ray as this genuinely broken man, just consumed by guilt, living in the shadow of the past. Not the hero we remember, more like a survivor who's deeply damaged by it. And his final decision in the third act stirred up major controversy. Some loved the complexity, the boldness. Others felt, well, the source is utterly betrayed. Like it just wasn't the Ray they knew.
That sounds incredibly controversial, especially for a character like Ray, who people really, root for. Without spoiling everything, can you give us a sense of just how shocking his story got? Why did it provoke such strong feelings?
Okay, so the boldest part, the most divisive, is definitely the dual killer reveal. It's not just one person in a slicker this time. The first killer reveal is Stevie, the main new girl's cousin. Motivated by trauma, revenge for some past injustice. That's fairly standard slasher stuff, playing on those generational secrets themes. But the bigger shock, the one everyone's talking about, is that Ray, Freddie Prinze Jr.'s character, is the second killer.
Wait, Ray himself?
Ray himself, yeah.
Yeah.
His motivation, as the sources describe it, is this really twisted survivor's guilt and this disturbing need to teach the new kids what it means to live with consequences.
Right.
He thinks by putting them through a similar horror, he can somehow prevent them making the same mistakes. It's a completely warped kind of mentorship born from his own trauma.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a dark psychological turn. Fundamentally redefines a character fans have known for decades.
Wow. Okay. That is a game changer for Ray. Challenges everything we thought. How did that specific reveal land? Was it seen as brave? Or did it just tick off the fan base?
The reactions were, truly mixed. A perfect mirror of the film's whole reception, really. Vulture, for instance, they loved it, said it was more daring than Scream. It challenges what it means to survive. So they clearly appreciated the subversion, redefining the character, seeing it as a fresh take on trauma's scars, how a victim could become, well, twisted. But then Reddit audiences generally hated it, called it character assassination. You saw comments like, Ray would never do that.
Right. That sounds about right for passionate fans.
Exactly. A strong emotional investment in the original Ray. Resistance to such a drastic change felt like a betrayal of his legacy for many. But connecting it to the bigger picture, it's undeniably gutsy. Whether you personally buy Ray's descent or not, it gives the film this thematic complexity you don't always get in slashers. It blurs that line between victim and villain, past and present. Forces you to question everything. It's not just shock value, it makes you think about the psychological costs of survival and horror. Maybe the scars inside are worse than the ones outside. Elevates it a bit beyond just jump scares, maybe towards psychological thriller territory.
Okay, so beyond the intricate story and the shocking character turns, how did the film actually look, feel? What about the direction, the overall tone? Was it stylish but maybe empty or just messy?
Well, the direction by Jennifer Caton Robinson is described as confident and stylish. So visually it seems to have appeal. Looks polished, modern, striking cinematography. But the source notes it sometimes prioritized form over substance.
Ah, the classic trap.
Yeah. Like stunning shots, sharp editing, but maybe the emotional arc or the theme feels a bit underserved. Style over narrative coherence sometimes. It's a tough balance for these reboots. But for genre fans, the kills were apparently creative, bloody, satisfying. That's crucial for a slasher, right? And it seems IKWI DLS 2025 delivered there. Visceral horror, well choreographed, helped keep that slasher feel even with deeper stuff. Where it seemed to struggle, according to reviews, was tonal balance. It tries to juggle that nostalgic sorrow from the legacy characters with that kind of Gen Z snark and modern horror vibe. And that's where it sometimes stumbled. Led to those uneven shifts people mentioned.
Like getting whiplash between sad and quippy.
Kind of like a really grim discussion about trauma, then maybe immediately followed by a snappy, almost comedic line. Pulls you out of the mood, undermines the impact. Felt like a push and pull between wanting to be serious horror and self-aware modern slasher.
So, okay. After diving deep into all these sources, pulling apart the reviews, the performances, and yeah, that really shocking twist, what's the final verdict on I Know What You Did Last Summer, 2025? Should people check it out? Or maybe just rewatch the original.
Look, this film clearly isn't going to please everyone. That's obvious from the divided reactions. It's undeniably messy sometimes. It makes incredibly bold choices, and yet fumbles tone and maybe the new character development at points. However, the sources do suggest it's also far more ambitious than a lot of slasher reboots we see. It tries to do something genuinely new, not just rehash. Its core strength really seems to be how it uses Julian Ray to question these big themes. Generational trauma, responsibility, the actual devastating cost of surviving something like that. It pushes boundaries there. And Jennifer Love Hewitt and Freddie Prinze Jr., they're specifically noted for elevating it. Their presence, their history with the franchise gives it an emotional depth that anchors even the more wild turns the story takes. Their performances alone might make it worth watching for original fans.
Yeah.
So while it's not called a great film, in that classic sense, it's widely deemed memorable. And in today's crowded horror reboot space, being memorable, that's something. It aims high, even if it doesn't always stick the landing perfectly. The source gave it a 6.5 out of 10. Described it as watchable, gutsy, imperfect, but emotionally interesting. It makes you think, makes you talk.
Right. So for fans of the original, sounds like it's definitely worth considering. For the nostalgia, for those returning performances, and yeah, for that incredibly bold twist that will absolutely get people talking. Sounds like a film that, flaws and all, really tries to offer something substantial. Well, we've taken our deep dive into I Know What You Did Last Summer, 2025. Explored its bold choices, its very polarizing reception. It really did challenge what we thought we knew about those iconic characters, and maybe even survival itself in this genre.
Yeah, and it raises that interesting question, doesn't it? When a film takes such a drastic, almost subversive turn with a character we love, how much are we, as viewers, willing to let them evolve? Even if it means changing everything we thought we knew.
We would absolutely love to hear what you think. Did the film's choices work for you? Did they miss the mark? Got any thoughts on that killer twist? Literally. Feel free to share your opinions, your favorite moments from this deep dive. Anything, really, in the comments below. We'd love to hear your take on the film. And hey, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives and content on the latest movies and dramas. And hit that bell icon too, so you won't miss any new updates from us. Until our next deep dive, stay curious.